Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for Fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan, and for some reason we are doing a buy, sell, keep, avoid video on a Monday, not a Tuesday, because Gameweek 5 starts literally tomorrow. So put that in your diary, guys. So yeah, one day early today, we're going to go through some of the transfer trends, I suppose, of the week, what players are best to buy and sell, and which players maybe not so much. So if you do enjoy this one, guys, please do leave a like, please do subscribe, but I just want to talk about something quickly first. So before we go any further, I want to talk about Fanslide, the world's first live in-play fantasy football game. The best way I can describe it, it's like if you played an entire season of FPL condensed into the space of just 90 minutes of football. You pick the game of football you want to play on, choose 3 players that you think will perform well in the match, and slide them in and out of your team throughout the match to try and catch them at their best. Now, Fanslide is completely free to play, and there are even prize leagues where you can join and win money. I actually hosted a £100 prize money league at the weekend. Some of you guys may have even joined that, and hopefully we'll do a few more of those in the upcoming games as well. There are also pay to play leagues too, if you want those larger prizes, if that's your kind of thing and you have that, you know, extra money that you can afford to lose. Absolutely go for it. If you're over 18 and you want to give all of this a go, those of you in the UK can click the link in the description right now. That will put you straight into my free to play mini league group. And if you're outside the UK, you can still join. Just search up Fanslide on the App Store or Google Play Store or whatever it is on your phone, and then you can join my group using the code UT8WF. I'm going to be playing this game over the next few game weeks. Please join in and let's see if you can beat me. You can't beat me. Okay, so the rules of the video: buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players that you might be thinking about removing but I think you should keep them. And avoids are players that are pretty hyped up right now but I think they are potential traps that should be avoided. So let's start off with some buys. We've got 2 in each category. Let's get on with it. So our first buy today is going to be Rodrigo at Leeds. I know we kind of talked about buying him last game week, but I think it was kind of optional to buy him last game week. This week, now he's got that Brighton fixture out the way, and that Brighton really was a tricky fixture that even Rodrigo's insane form wasn't quite good enough to get past that defence, but he did manage 5 shots in that game, which is another insane amount of shots for Rodrigo. He seems to be just at a shots machine right now. It's just taking so many shots, and therefore he's generating a lot of opportunities for goals. He's scored a few goals. His expected goals is slowly creeping up, and he's being pretty creative as well. Now, the fixtures are pretty good coming up. We've had 2 bad fixtures in a row, on paper anyway, Chelsea and then Brighton, but now they look a little bit better. We've got Everton at home, then we've got Brentford, who are conceding a few goals, to be fair to them, and Nottingham Forest as well. Manchester United after that. What kind of Manchester United are we going to see? So I really do like this run of fixtures over the next 4 for Rodrigo. I think we've come to a point where now that those bad fixtures are out the way, we've seen how good Rodrigo has been. We've had enough time to kind of evaluate whether it's just, one-off times that he's playing really well, but we're now seeing consistent kind of the way he's playing. He's playing very well and consistently taking a lot of shots and consistently doing what we like in FPL, I suppose. So I think now is a very good time to jump in on him. Even at 6.4 million, he would definitely be the top of my shopping list, I think. Pascal Gross is definitely up there as well. Now, I think Gross actually has even better fixtures than Leeds and Rodrigo. So if we're talking about kind of going in on these kind of slightly cheaper midfielders, Pascal Gross has to be right up there as one of your #1 targets. We've got Fulham next, then Leicester at home, then Bournemouth, and then even after that we've got Crystal Palace at home, which is not the worst fixture either. So certainly these next 3, the way Brighton are playing right now, you certainly fancy them to pick up a few points over these coming game weeks. Now, Pascal Gross, what's great about him is he is just in such good form and pretty much is everything about this Brighton attack right now. He's generating the most amount of expected goals and expected assists as well. He's really creeping up. He's creating a lot of chances. And last game where he scored 1 goal against Leeds, he could have actually got a couple of assists in that game if maybe his teammates were a little bit better at finishing. But what I'm saying is that if you're going to go for a Brighton attacker right now to attack these really nice 3 fixtures where you do want an attacker to face these 3 defences, Pascal Gross is just so obvious there as the real standout at Brighton, and you can get him from a really decent price, even now at 5.8 million. So I really do think he is worth going for if you haven't done already. He's just that ultimate cheap midfielder right now. So yeah, he's definitely someone I would recommend if you haven't got him already. He's still a little bit of a differential as well, so you can maybe get one over on your mates. The stats are telling us that Gross is just an absolute beast and definitely a difference from what we've seen in previous seasons. Onto some sells. Mason Mount is going to be one of our more obvious sells. I think, unfortunately, it just hasn't quite worked out for him so far this season. He doesn't seem to be quite the player. He doesn't seem to be playing in quite the same positions as well as he was last season. Maybe that's because Chelsea just don't quite seem complete. And I think maybe Fofana coming into the team and Koulibaly coming back into the team may make Chelsea look a little bit more complete, certainly in the defensive point of view, maybe allowing Reece James to be freed up a little bit more. But Mason Mount, is he just... It's just not the Mason Mount we've seen of old, and we can see now if we've had consistent kind of a situation where consistently he just hasn't been doing nearly enough for an 8 million midfielder. That's what he was originally. Just not been doing enough. It's not like he's been getting a lot of chances or taking a lot of shots on or getting a lot of decent opportunities. He's not really. He's taken just a couple of shots in the box. He's only made a handful of key chances for his teammates as well. And he's just not doing very well statistically, and he doesn't look good either. So when the stats don't look good, the eye test doesn't look good either, you kind of have to question whether you're prepared to spend that amount of money on a player like that. The fixtures coming up are mixed as well. So, I don't know. I just think it's maybe time to jump off that Chelsea attack. The only Chelsea attacker that looks kind of worth going in on right now is probably Sterling. But even him, he's quite expensive, isn't he? But certainly Mason Mount is not going to be the one, is he? I was kind of struggling to think of as different sell really, because a lot of the players that are being popularly sold I really disagree with a lot of the players that are being heavily sold that a lot of people own. I mean, I think mostly people have already got it right, and it seems like a week where maybe not a lot of transfers are needed, but a lot of people are selling some of their Aston Villa players, and I definitely agree with this. Aston Villa players seem to be the players that I'll probably sacrifice. Now, I am recording this video before Aston Villa have played this game week, so just a fair warning, the Aston Villa versus West Ham game has not taken place at time of recording. I do know the lineups, that's about all I know right now, but yeah, unfortunately it's just a busy weekend for me, and I'll have to pre-record this video for Monday, so there we go. But anyway, we've still got the first 3 game weeks worth of data from Matty Cash. No idea how he's got on in game week 4. You guys can probably tell me in hindsight. You can tell me in hindsight how Cash did, but certainly in the opening 3 fixtures, not good at all. Just 2 shots from pretty weak areas, to be honest, and only 2 key passes in 3 games. Now that's not the Matty Cash we kind of used to, particularly for a player that was playing in some pretty easy fixtures, I would say. So statistically, absolutely an abomination so far. Up next, he's got Arsenal and then Man City, and even that Leicester game, we know Leicester can score goals. Even if they concede goals, they do score goals, which is no good for our defenders, really. So Matty Cash, as well as all of the other Aston Villa players, you know, Bailey isn't starting today on Sunday, so yeah, maybe that's going to be a player that you desperately want to remove as well. But certainly there doesn't seem to be much reason to hang on to those Aston Villa players. So all Aston Villas, Cash included, Bailey included, they're all going to have to be sells this week, unfortunately. Right, here's the big keep of the video. It is Salah. We've got to keep him. The same people who are talking about selling Salah this week are the people who last game week were talking about selling Trent Alexander-Arnold. And look how that worked out. Look, we can say all we like, oh, a player is not performing as well as we hope they would do. But remember, we are still on a fairly small sample size. And even in Salah's small sample size of just 4 game weeks, we can see that he's pretty much matched his XG. And in that game against Bournemouth, he was getting chances to score. He was getting some really good opportunities. So is it that you think Salah is not clinical enough anymore? That he hasn't got that edge? Well, okay, well that kind of contradicts the game weeks before where he was overperforming his expected goals. So it has to go one of both ways. You know, you can't have it all. Do you think Salah is not clinical? In which case, how do you excuse the first few game weeks? Or do you think he doesn't get enough chances? In which case, how do you excuse the game against Bournemouth? That's all I'm saying here, really. But basically, the situation is that Salah is pretty much matching his stats anyway. You know, he's not really underperforming. He doesn't look that bad, really. He's still taking a lot of shots in those dangerous areas. And more than ever, he is just so creative right now. 15 key passes in 4 games is a decent amount of key passes for a player we typically associate with scoring goals as well. So still lots to like about Mo Salah. And again, historically, the same situation with Trent Alexander-Arnold. He looked okay. He looked okay from a statistical point of view in the opening 4 fixtures. Yes, he hadn't gotten as many returns as we hoped he would. But we looked at his underlying stats, they looked okay, and we looked at his previous 4 seasons and we think Trent is amazing. It's the same with Salah. Don't judge him Salah too much unless these stats were awful. He hadn't got any goals, he hadn't got any assists, his XG and his XA were really low, he wasn't taking enough shots, he wasn't making enough key passes. If all of those things weren't happening, then maybe we could have a look at selling Salah. But his underlying data is not bad. we have enough historical data to suggest that Salah is a phenomenal player and an even better FPL asset. There's just no real reason to sell him. Liverpool are kind of out the blocks now, aren't they? They finally got their win, and this is going to kickstart their season. And fair enough, very unfortunate that Salah didn't get any returns in that 9-0 win. I can't explain that. It's beyond belief. Trust me, guys. I wish I knew how that happened, because that is a almost impossible scenario. I think someone worked out the odds of that happening, of Liverpool scoring 9 goals and Salah getting 0 returns despite playing the whole game. The odds of that happening was something like 1 in 2 million. But sometimes strange things happen. So it's just one of those things. Salah is not suddenly a terrible player, in my opinion. And if you think he is suddenly a terrible player and you want to throw all of this historical data out the window, then you do you. But I'm not going to sit here and say sell Salah. I want to be very clear on my stance on this one. I am firmly right this second in the keep Salah camp. I'm not saying that can never change, but right now, he's not been bad enough for me to throw out all of history. Okay, the next keep is going to be Cancello. So ironically, Salah and Cancello are actually 2 of the most transferred players out. I think they're like the 2nd and 3rd most transferred players out already this week, and this is just knee-jerking. Have people completely forgot game week 1 and 2 from Cancello, where he kept a clean sheet and then he got a clean sheet and an assist in the 2nd game, and everything was going amazing and everyone was just like, oh my god, we have to buy Cancello. 2 game weeks, we have a couple of blanks, and suddenly Cancello is an absolute must-sell, worst FPL asset ever. Please, guys, come on. We need to calm down. I understand, we are getting into the territory where 4 game weeks worth of data is kind of enough to be going by to start making some decisions, or at least, the start of something sort of like solid coming together. But we're not looking at that with Cancello. You're looking at 2 blanks. You're looking at 2 blanks in the last 2 games. And there's nothing to suggest that that's going to continue against Nottingham Forest at home. It's a really good fixture for Cancello. It's exactly the same situation as we had with Trent Alexander-Arnold. People were saying, oh, he's not worth the money. I'm going to sell him, even though he's about to play Bournemouth. We got like an identical situation now. Cancelo is about to play a newly promoted Nottingham Forest, and people are selling him. Like the difficulty is that the same people will be making the same mistake over and over again, selling Salah, selling Trent because they got impatient, and then suddenly Trent scores, and they're like, well, how did that happen? Well, it happened because it's a great player. Cancelo has always been a great FPL asset. So is Salah. So is Trent Alexander-Arnold. These are players that were pretty much nailed in everyone's game week 1 team. They were players that were pretty much essential last season because they just are such good FPL assets, and I wouldn't let 1 or 2 blanks distract you from that fact. I wouldn't let the Trent Alexander-Arnold blanks distract you, and look what happened after that. Cancelo is honestly, this looks like it's going to be a similar situation where 500,000 people will transfer out Cancello and he'll suddenly score a 12-pointer or a 15-pointer in game week 5. I can really see that happening. I would even genuinely consider captaining Cancello in game week 5. That's how strongly I feel about keeping him. He's an absolute must-keep as far as I'm concerned. The only exception might be that if you're on a wild card or something and you wanted to go with a cheaper City defender in order to free up some budget or something like that, that would be the only exception to that. But in terms of your plain old transfers, I can't really think of a good move that involves selling Cancello. And finally, the avoids. We're going to put Kieran Trippier in the avoids first. Again, haven't seen this game yet because it hasn't been played at time of recording. But, yeah, I just think it's a bit of a dodgy time to kind of buy Trippier. Like, I understand that he's a good player. He's a good FPL asset. But the thing we always say about, players is you've got to find the right jumping on and off points, particularly with defenders where fixtures are so important. We do need to identify which is the right game week to bring in Trippier. Now, I know people will be watching this video who already own Trippier, and you'll be like, oh my word, what's wrong with Trippier? He's great, isn't he? Yes, he absolutely is great. And if I already had him, of course I would be keeping him. But if I didn't have him already, I would be considering waiting just one more game week, get this Liverpool game out of the way before bringing him in. And I know people will say, well, okay, what about attacking returns? Do you not fancy Trippier to get any attacking returns? Of course it's possible. But we have seen that, yes, Trippier is on those set pieces. He obviously scored a free kick. That's not going to happen every game week. That is a kind of a few times a season type deal. We can see that from open play, his stats, well, I mean, just in general, his stats have just not been that good at all. He's only taken 2 shots. He's only made 3 key passes. That's not very many, really. And his XG and XA is really, really quite low. So, yeah, aside from the free kick, which is obviously amazing, I don't think we should naturally assume that Trippier is going to get attacking returns. And I really don't fancy him for a clean sheet. I haven't actually been that impressed with Newcastle defensively this season. I know we think of them as a good defence these days, but I don't think I've actually been that impressed with them defensively. But maybe that changes in Game Week 4, and by the time you actually watch this video and you've seen the Newcastle game this weekend versus Wolves, then maybe I'll look kind of foolish. But that's just my opinion on that one. I don't think this is the right moment to buy Trippier. I'm not saying I would sell him. I'm just saying I wouldn't buy him this week. Alright, and let's throw this one in as the final avoid and the final player of this video, because I know I'm going to have to answer this question way too many times if I don't just talk about it in a video. People will be looking at Firmino's Game Week 4 score and they'll be like, wow, I really have to buy Firmino. Dan, are we buying Firmino? Is it Firmino time? Let's go, baby, si, senor. And I will have to say no and reply to every comment saying no. So let's just cover it. I'm not going to be buying Firmino personally. I don't think this is a very good FPL pick or an FPL buy. Yes, he had a fantastic game, 2 goals and 3 assists, and his underlying stats look good until you realise that pretty much all of these underlying stats that you see on screen right now were recorded in that one game against the weakest team in the league, Bournemouth at home. So, in terms of his stats outside of that game, when he played in the previous game weeks, he kind of took 1 shot in 3 game weeks. He only played 2 of those games anyway. He only made 1 key pass during those initial 3 game weeks as well. So he wasn't really doing very much at all, to be fair. So I just think that, yes, sometimes a player will have a phenomenal game, but unless we see a pattern, we haven't seen a pattern emerge so far this season. We haven't seen a pattern emerge in previous seasons either. Firmino has been typically a fairly low scoring player in FPL terms. So until we see a pattern and 1 game week against a really easy opposition in a crazy 9-0 win is definitely not enough of a pattern for us to go in on Firmino. And that's even before we start talking about rotation. We're going to have Darwin Núñez coming back from suspension very soon. We're going to have Jota returning from injury as well. And that's going to mean that Firmino's minutes are going to be heavily reduced. He is going to be rotated a little bit, well, quite a lot there. May not even play half of the games, which is not good either. So lots of reasons, despite the great performance against Bournemouth, there are lots of reasons to avoid Firmino. So I'm going to have to say, despite his good game week, there is just not enough there historically and looking to the future with rotation for me to go for Firmino. He's not for me. I would be avoiding this guy. Okay, in summary, guys, I just think we should be looking at 4 game weeks worth of data rather than 1 or 2, and also make sure we're kind of looking at previous seasons as well when considering players. We want to see some trends emerging before deciding to buy or sell players, rather than rushing players in and out of our team based on 1 or 2 game weeks worth of poor FPL scores. If you want to check out some more, stats and stuff like that, of course, you can check out the link in the description for the Opta stats via the Fantasy Football Hub tool. They provide all of the stats for this channel at the moment, which is absolutely amazing of them, and you can go check that out yourself. And yeah, basically just try not to knee-jerk too much. Try and look for consistent returns before going in on a player, and consistent performances and consistent good stats, which is what we're really looking for in these videos, particularly with our buys and sells, aren't we? Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please do leave a like. Please do consider subscribing as well if you're new around here. If you want to join my Fan Slide League and group, you can check that out in the description, and we'll be hosting a few more interesting leagues with maybe a little bit of money on the line as well. Free to play, of course. So yeah, do go check that out wherever you are in the world. But yeah, that's going to be it from me today. One more video this week, which will be a team selection video, which will come out on Tuesday at some point, and then we'll obviously do a deadline stream as well. But until then, guys, I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.